Leppenheim, the capital of the Antares Empire, is in flames because of an all-out war. Many dragon-like creatures are battling against the armed human soldiers. A golden-haired old man in shining armor cannot believe that their army of 2 million was defeated by the creatures they themselves summoned. A soldier reports that about 200,000 were killed and 300,000 were injured due to the enemy's overwhelming attacks and summoning spells. The golden-haired man, who is actually the king of the humans, declares that this is the end for the demon king who destroyed their kingdom and filled the world with corruption, because the true heroes will defeat him. Hearing this, the soldier praises his king's wisdom. In the Hall of Abyss, deep within the great demon palace at the heart of Garak City, the hero Alex von Hallion shouts that today all the crimes of the demon king will end. Many other heroes stand with Alex, declaring that it is time for the demon king Leppenhard to return to darkness. The one they call the demon king is in fact the emperor of the Antares Empire. Another bearded hero, Stellar Sword Cyrus, takes his stance and vows to destroy Leppenhard to end the so-called Dark Empire. Leppenhard sits calmly on his throne, remarking in annoyance that they insist on calling his empire dark when it already has a perfectly fine name, Antares, where the sun and moon rise like anywhere else. The king of Feast, Tezron, reveals his golden aura and insists that once the demon king is defeated, the demonic creatures will also lose their corrupted nature. But Leppenhard knows this is not the truth. The creatures have always lived the same way. He merely taught them human war tactics. Humans only call them corrupted because they can now fight on equal terms, which threatens human dominance. Leppenhard asks if all the warrior kings have fallen. Stellar proudly confirms he fought the mighty orc warrior Tacid, who did not stand a chance against his sword. Shocked by the news, Leppenhard mourns Tacid's death. Orcs may appear rough, but they are loyal and honorable beings who protect the weak. Tezron laughs, adding that even a troll has paid for its so-called sins. This shocks Leppenhard further when he learns that Guru Atilka has also been slain. Trolls may look intimidating, but they honor nature and seek harmony with the world. Leppenhard begins to weep, only to hear Saint Ellen, known for her gentle appearance, announce that the dwarf who worshipped another deity has also been set on the right path. In other words, he too has been killed. Leppenhard cannot believe that even Maiklin is dead, and he questions when the dwarven god Allport became known as a god of darkness. To him, it is clear that humans treat any deity outside their own main god, Sayer, and the 12 deities as evil. Then Jade Arclight, the light wizard, proudly demonstrates his magic while declaring that he has already sent a so-called dark elf to the afterlife. This enrages Leppenhard, who reveals his power and asks if all the heroes are so eager to die. Seeing his black aura, the heroes proclaim that the Demon King is finally revealing his true nature, which only fuels his anger further. Tezron insists that the Dark Elves are fallen creatures, undeserving of pity. Leppenhard covers his face in despair, shouting that Cirrus was never a Dark Elf. She only had slightly darker skin because humans destroyed the forests, forcing her people into wastelands where they were scorched by the sun. He asks how they could call a pure-blooded high elf a dark elf simply for having tan skin. The heroes, unmoved, charge forward. Alex shouts that defeating Leppenhard will bring peace to the souls of the fallen. Leppenhard's eyes darken as he realizes there is no point in speaking with them anymore. To these humans, they see them only as evil beings to be destroyed. As Alex prepares to strike, Leppenhard decides to embrace the role of Demon King that they have forced upon him. He unleashes his power, breaking the ground beneath the heroes, and through his tears reveals that he was once an archwizard, though hardly an ordinary one. For him, the tragedy is clear. Humans have never accepted other races as their equals. Elves are treated like beautiful servants with long lifespans. Dwarves are forced into labor as skilled diggers and craftsmen. Orcs are used as strong workers, and trolls are harvested for their healing abilities. All of these races had lost their pride and dignity, living as slaves. Leppenhard was shocked when he uncovered the hidden injustice buried within this forgotten culture. By living among them, he learned their way of life, and by combining the elves' elemental magic with the trolls' sorcery, he became the first person in history to wield the 10-circle magic. Through these exchanges, his values began to change. Unable to watch the suffering of the enslaved races any longer, he started rescuing them. But as his territory expanded to give them shelter, it became harder to stay hidden from humans. Eventually, humans sent armed knights to invade his lands. Although his people only defended themselves, their territory continued to grow, and the village expanded into what became the Antares Empire. All the races were overjoyed to finally have their own kingdom. Lepenhard never built the empire out of hatred for humans. He simply believed all intelligent beings were equal. He never sought revenge, yet the result was all-out war. Even when citizens praised the empire as a great place to live, humans dismissed it as nothing more than the evil magic of the Demon King. Lepenhard understood that perhaps having orcs and goblins as imperial guards seemed intimidating, but that was no excuse to harm innocent people. As ruler, he now saw it as his duty to protect his citizens. He abolished old laws that allowed cruelty toward other races and created new laws of equality. In the Great Battle, Lepenhard strikes Alex, sending him flying. He declares that Alex may have been skilled in both sword and magic, but he mastered neither, making him a jack of all trades, master of none. To Lepenhard, true specialists were the ones who survived. One by one, he defeats the heroes, except for the mighty Tezron, whose unmatched strength and endurance make him far more dangerous. Tezron charges at Lepenhard, breaking through the palace walls with sheer force. Lepenhard dodges, thinking that Tezron is a man who devoted his entire life to perfecting one skill. Bringing him down would not be easy. Tezron closes in again, smashing through stone as Lepenhard leaps onto a crumbling platform, only to be attacked once more. Lepenhard counters with magic, but Tezron's punch still lands. Striking his head, he taunts Tezron, claiming he blocked the strike with magic, but inside he knows his spine has been shattered. As Tezron steps forward to finish him, Lepenhard admits defeat, saying Tezron has won. Tezron replies that now the enslaved races will be freed from their so-called evil nature. Those words enrage Lepenhard. He realizes that to humans, other races will always be seen as slaves or corrupted beings, no matter how noble they truly are. His frustration boils over, and he reveals an ancient artifact known as the Eye of Time and Space, found deep within the ruins. Not even a 10-circle mage like himself had ever been able to unlock its secrets. Tezron shouts in alarm, demanding to know what he is planning. Lepenhard declares he will attempt a time and space spell, one capable of defying even the order of the gods. Though unsure if it will activate, he has nothing left to lose. As Tezron charges with lethal intent, Lepenhard focuses on unraveling the artifact's logic, challenging Tezron to stop him if he can. Just as Tezron closes in, a golden light erupts, surrounding them. The artifact glows brightly, and in an instant, everything changes. The scene shifts. Birds sing peacefully outside, and Lepenhard awakens in a small wooden house filled with warmth and comfort. He blinks in confusion, wondering why he is still alive. Sitting up on the bed, he recalls that he barely managed to decode the artifact's spell. He never expected it to activate so suddenly. Looking around, he realizes this place is unfamiliar. He must have leapt through time. Reaching up to touch his face, he notices it is no longer the same. He is no longer the Lepenhard of before. Lepenhard stands up, remarking that even the toughest man would break down in tears if they saw the size of his new body. He wonders whose body it could be, noticing the thick calluses, countless scars, and layers of muscle stacked on top of each other. With a hint of irony, he mutters that a wizard only needs to cast spells, so there is no point in having something as useless as six-pack abs. He recalls his younger years, when he was considered quite the charmer, and even in his older age, his sharp and distinguished looks won the admiration of many elves. But now, looking into the mirror, he taunts the unfamiliar, bland-looking face staring back at him. His once elegant features have been replaced with a rugged mess of bulging muscles. He questions what exactly happened during the spell and wonders if ending up in another person's body means the magic failed. Still, something about this new face feels strangely familiar. Lepenhard examines his reflection more closely. Thick brown eyebrows, fierce eyes, and a tightly shut mouth. He anticipates that if he grows larger and adds some facial hair, he would look exactly like the King of Fists, Tezron. Just as he realizes this, someone outside curses at him, calling him Tezron. A large, bearded man enters the room, twice Tezron's size, and cheerfully tells him that the sun is already high and he should start the day with a smile. Nervous and intimidated, Lepenhard blurts out a question about the man's identity, secretly thinking he might be facing a monster. The old man eyes him with suspicion. For Tesran to look at him like a stranger is unusual. When Lepenhard insists that he truly doesn't know who he is, the old man scoffs, accusing him of using the memory loss excuse again. He warns that such an excuse won't work a second time. Without waiting, he grabs Lepenhard by the head and drags him toward the training grounds. Lepenhard quickly realizes this must be Tesran's teacher, the legendary king of fists, Gerard Chrome Proteus, the strongest fighter on the continent. The scene shifts to Lepenhard tied to a tree, terrified. He tries to reason with Gerard, but Gerard silences him, claiming he is talking far too much today. Gerard then brings out a bundle of bamboo sticks, preparing for training. Seeing this, Lepenhard grows even more anxious as Gerard begins the harsh routine. The blows sting, and Lepenhard cries out internally, trembling in pain and confusion. He even thinks of Cirrus, fearing this might be the end for him. As the training continues, Gerard notices something different. Lepenhard's body feels softer than usual. He begins to suspect that maybe Tesran truly has memory loss this time. After all, their martial sect, known as the Gym Unbreakable, is infamous for its intense and unforgiving training. Even Gerard himself admits he once lost his memory during the brutal routines. With a smirk, Gerard decides there's nothing to worry about and concludes the solution is simple: train harder. He intensifies the strikes, shouting that the more Tesran endures, the faster the memory loss will vanish. Lepenhard, trapped in Tesran's body, begs for help in his mind, while Gerard continues lecturing. He claims humans rely on weapons only because they are weak, calling armor and blades the tools of those too fragile to face their weaknesses. A true fighter, Gerard insists, must train their flaws and overcome them with nothing but their body. Lepenhard, however, finds himself baffled. After 50 years of life and knowledge, he thinks he has never heard anything so absurd. The bamboo stick Gerard was using breaks into pieces, and he explains that the human body is like iron. Just as iron becomes stronger the more it is hammered, so too does the body grow tougher through hardship. This reasoning makes Lepenhard angry because, to him, Gerard's explanation makes no sense. Gerard continues, saying he chose Tesran as his student because he believed in his potential. Not everyone can grow stronger through training alone, Gerard explains. Only the finest iron can turn into steel, and that is why he chose Tesran. Gerard keeps striking Lepenhard, who is now in Tesran's body, while telling him to think of the vast ocean, because the sea accepts everything yet remains unchanged. Gerard's intention is to make him awaken the limitless strength within, but to Lepenhard it all sounds like nonsense. Hearing about the ocean reminds him of Cirrus and the times they spent together at the beach, which makes him emotional. Seeing his tears, Gerard finally ends the training, ordering him to rest. Lepenhard collapses in exhaustion, relieved that he survived. Hugging himself, he silently thanks Tesran's powerful body for enduring the punishment. Later that night, while bathing, Lepenhard is astonished to see the tub filled with geril grass, and even healing potions. Knowing that each potion costs at least 10 silver coins, he is shocked that they used so many just for a bath. Staring at the water, he recalls stories of queens bathing in milk for their complexion, but compared to this, that seems modest. Curious, he asks Gerard why such a luxurious bath was prepared. Gerard explains that iron must be cooled after being hammered, and the same applies to the body. Lepenhard realizes their training method pushes every muscle and bone to the limit, then relies on aura and healing waters to recover quickly. By regenerating before the body breaks down, they make it tougher each time. Though still skeptical, Lepenhard admits it is not a completely baseless method. Having fought Tesran himself, he knows firsthand how incredibly resilient his body is. This means Tesran must have endured such training since his youth. Leaning back in the water, Lepenhard becomes certain that he has indeed traveled into the past. Yet he wonders what happened to the younger Lepenhard of this timeline. Could both versions of him exist at once? He considers two possibilities. Either the Lepenhard of the future now coexists with his younger self, or the young Lepenhard's body carries the soul of Tesran. After taking the medicinal bath, Gerard arrives with piles of meat and orders Lepenhard to eat it all, explaining that he needs to replenish his body with nutrients after pushing it to the limit. Lepenhard immediately begins eating, though reluctantly. Once the meal is finished, Gerard takes him jogging to work off the food. Lepenhard follows with a heavy backpack on his shoulders, but quickly grows exhausted. Seeing this, Gerard asks if the jogging is too much and suggests they return to morning training. But Lepenhard refuses and pushes himself forward, wondering how long he will have to endure this brutal regimen. Afterward, he collapses into bed, completely drained. Although he is now inside the body of young Tesron, the experience makes Lepenhard cry. He has no idea how this strange situation will affect the future, and more than anything, he wants to escape the mountain. He worries about what might happen if the two souls, his and Tesrin's, ever cross paths. The uniqueness of each soul is, after all, an unbreakable law of the universe. If he is unlucky, both souls could be destroyed. He recalls that the younger version of himself won't begin his journey as a wizard for another 10 years, as he is likely still buried in books at the Delphia Magic Tower. That means the chance of meeting him is small. Still, there remains the possibility of Tesron taking over the young Lepenhard's body. If that happens, Lepenhard is certain Tesron would come after him. However, Tesrin's true strength lies in his well-trained body, and the young Lepenhard's body would be far too weak to match it, unless Tesron could somehow become a 10-circle wizard. The Gym Unbreakable's training requires the guidance of a master, so it should be impossible to achieve alone. But Lepenhard also knows that Tesron is the kind of man who might find a way regardless. For now, Lepenhard decides his top priority is escaping the mountain. At midnight, he makes a run for it. But to his horror, Gerard is already waiting for him. The old master asks where he thinks he is going. Shocked, Lepenhard wonders how long Gerard has been sitting there. Gerard calmly explains that it has been months since Lepenhard first tried to escape, and this is now his 9th attempt, meaning he will soon hit double digits. Frustrated, Lepenhard blurts out the truth. He is not Tesron, but Lepenhard, a wizard. Gerard, however, doesn't believe him. He smirks, saying that Tesron has used all kinds of wild stories before, claiming he came from another world, met gods and dragons, or was the reincarnation of a martial arts master from the eastern continent. Lepenhard breaks into a sweat, realizing Tesrin's past excuses ruined his credibility. Gerard pats his head, calling the latest story pretty convincing, but insists he return to bed. He drags Lepenhard back to his room, while Lepenhard silently vows to try again tomorrow. Every attempt fails. When Lepenhard tries sneaking through the bushes, Gerard is already there. When he tries escaping through the river, Gerard pulls him out again, assuring him that he understands how he feels, but urging him to endure the training a little longer, promising it will pay off. The man once feared as the Demon King, for his persistence, eventually gives up on escaping altogether. During training, Gerard explains the apprentice escape prevention method perfected over more than 130 years. Their clan is so strict that not a single student has avoided faking illness or attempting to run away, and yet none have ever succeeded. Lepenhard breaks into tears, realizing that even if he manages to escape, Gerard will hunt him to the ends of the earth. At this point, he thinks it may be easier to ask for permission to leave than to keep trying. Time passes, and 2 long years go by. Lepenhard endures the relentless training day after day, living what feels like a never-ending trial. Then, one day, Gerard finally congratulates him. After all the suffering, Lepenhard has awakened his aura. Lepenhard had heard that even Stellar Sword Cyrus, who was praised as a genius, did not awaken his aura until his late 20s. Yet somehow, Lepenhard managed to achieve it before turning 20. He was stunned by the sight of his newly awakened aura, but Gerard only laughed, asking why he looked so surprised when it was the natural outcome of Gym Unbreakable's training. Gerard had been striking him with a bat during training, but it no longer hurt. When physical training pushed Lepenhard's survival instincts to the edge, his will to live strengthened his vitality, and that power manifested as aura. Tossing the bat aside, Gerard declared it was time to move on to the next stage, skill training. Excited, Lepenhard thought this meant he would finally learn martial arts techniques and maybe even get the chance to leave the mountain. When he asked what kind of skill training it would be, Gerard laughed, revealed his own aura, and explained that it simply meant free sparring with him. Lepenhard fell silent at the thought, and so another 3 years passed. In the southern region of the Vasily Kingdom, Deep within the rugged Rocket Mountain range, Lepenhard stood before a waterfall, powering up his fist with aura. He named the move Calamity Horn. Gathering mana into his fist, he struck the mountain wall, leaving a massive hole. He wondered if 3 layers of power were still his limit, since he felt he could reach higher with more training. Calamity Horn was a secret technique that channeled all of the body's power into a single devastating strike. The aura condensed in successive layers, forming what looked like a horn, hence the name. The ultimate form of the technique was 9 stacks, a strike said to be powerful enough to challenge even a deity. In his past life, Tezron had only managed 7 stacks, and Gerard himself had only reached 8. Gerard told him that he would not be allowed to leave the mountain until he could achieve at least 4 stacks. Standing on the cliff, Lepenhard muttered that since Gerard had gone down to the village, he would take his time and maybe even enjoy a drink. The old Lepenhard would have seen this as an opportunity to escape, but now he was different. Instead, he paused his physical skill training and tried casting a magic spell. He attempted Arrow Bullet and launched it toward a tree, but the result was disappointing. His body simply was not cooperating. Even though he retained all his magical knowledge thanks to the artifact Phantasmagoria, he questioned whether he could truly become a wizard while stuck in Tesrin's body, which could not generate mana properly or handle complex calculations. While he was still practicing, Lepenhard suddenly sensed a presence nearby. It wasn't human. An orc emerged from the trees, equally surprised to see him. After realizing that the person in front of him is an orc, Lepenhard notes from his size that he must only be 3 or 4 years old. He wonders if the young orc has escaped from a battle arena, as he is still very young. Frustrated, the orc orders Lepenhard to pretend he didn't see him, promising not to harm him if he complies. From this, Lepenhard realizes the orc is actually trying to start a conversation, since he shows no hostility, even in tense situations. Lepenhard smiles and asks if the orc is being chased. Surprised, the orc asks how a human can speak the language of grace. Lepenhard replies that he learned it long ago from orcs he once knew. Relieved, the young orc admits that he is indeed being chased. Lepenhard offers to help and asks if he can be trusted. The orc answers that anyone who speaks the language of grace is like a brother to him, and he can sense Lepenhard's genuine goodwill. However, he warns that helping him will put Lepenhard in danger as well. From the orc's eloquence, Lepenhard suspects he is of noble blood. He reassures the young orc that he has the power to help and must trust him. Lepenhard then uses magic to conceal the hole he had created earlier during training and tells the orc to hide inside. Surprised, the orc asks if Lepenhard is a wizard. Lepenhard casually asks if that seems strange. The young orc replies that it does, since Lepenhard has such a strong physique, but he gratefully enters the cave and thanks him for his help. Almost immediately, a group of mercenaries in armor arrive, complaining about whether chasing a young orc is really worth a few silver coins. They approach Lepenhard and ask if he has seen an orc pass by, promising him 1 gold coin if he provides information. Among themselves, they whisper that they have no intention of paying and will trick him once they get the answer. Lepenhard calmly replies that he knows nothing. A tall man with long black hair points to the tracks nearby and accuses him of lying, noting that the footprints lead directly to him. Lepenhard then remembers that basic concealment magic does not hide tracks. Thinking quickly, he insists this is his residence and refuses them entry. Angered, the black-haired man calls him uncultured, while a brown-haired man notes that Lepenhard looks unusually strong. The leader, Bright, shouts for his men not to be intimidated, boasting that they outnumber him 10 to 1. He demands Lepenhard move aside. Realizing they won't leave peacefully, Lepenhard begins casting a spell, recalling Gerard's teaching, that his fists alone are deadly weapons, so he must show mercy to those weaker than him. To limit harm, he manifests a hammer-like weapon from his spell circle, reasoning that using a weapon is a more merciful option than striking with his bare fists. Holding the weapon, he warns the mercenaries that they won't die, though they may be badly beaten. The mercenaries grow enraged at his confidence and charge at him. Gritting his teeth, Lepenhard swings the weapon, sending several of them flying. Shocked, they regroup and decide to attack him all at once. The weapon technique he uses, the cudgel technique, is not truly meant for combat, but for training. It is designed to toughen the body by striking every part of an opponent relentlessly, with no defensive moves, only pure offense. As Lepenhard strikes down the attackers, a white-haired man sneaks behind him and strikes with the sword. To everyone's shock, the blade crumples on impact while Lepenhard remains unharmed. He looks at himself in disbelief, wondering how anyone can still call his body human when not even steel can pierce it. Though it is his body now, the reality still feels absurd. The remarkable thing about the cudgel technique is that it never kills opponents. Even if their joints are damaged, Lepenhard keeps attacking the mercenaries, thinking that this technique ensures they will survive. Soon, all of them are trembling and writhing in pain, leaving only Bright standing, his body shaking with fear. Pointing his sword at Lepenhard, Bright demands to know his identity. In response, Lepenhard uses the broken weapon and strikes him, reasoning that since all of Bright's companions are down, it wouldn't be fair for him to remain untouched. After being struck, Bright begs for his life. Lepenhard spares him and orders the mercenaries to leave the forest immediately. Though he wins easily, he feels unsatisfied, thinking the fight ended before it became truly interesting. He even wonders if he should take on students of his own one day to properly test his strength. Without realizing it, Lepenhard has already begun to think like a disciple of Jim Unbreakable. Once the mercenaries retreat, the young orc steps out from hiding and thanks Lepenhard, promising he will never forget this day and vowing to repay his debt no matter what. Lepenhard asks if a warrior should bow his head so easily. The orc responds that saving him and showing him a new path makes Lepenhard his mentor. In orc culture, a mentor is more than a teacher. It is a life guide, deeply respected, much like the loyalty knights show to their lords. He swears that when the time comes, he will gladly draw his sword for Lepenhard. The young orc then asks for his name. Lepenhard almost introduces himself as Tezron but hesitates, finally saying his true name, Lepenhard. The orc nods and promises to remember it. Curious, Lepenhard asks where he intends to go, knowing how limited an orc's options are in a world dominated by humans. The young orc replies that the continent is vast, and he is confident he can find a place to live. If not, he would rather wander freely than live as a slave. Moved by his words, Lepenhard suggests he head southeast, toward the wastelands of the Rocked Mountains. He explains that it is about a 2-week journey and is known among orcs as the Land of Trials. There, he will find the Blue Bear tribe, who are also in hiding. The young orc accepts the guidance, and after exchanging farewells, he begins running toward the direction Lepenhard pointed out. As he leaves, Lepenhard calls out, asking his name. The orc shouts back proudly that he is the son of Crota and bearer of Lat's axe, Tacit. Lepenhard is stunned. He realizes this young orc is none other than Tacit, who in his past life became one of the 4 great warrior kings. Tacit would go on to be the mighty chief of the Blue Bear tribe, and eventually rise as the head chief of all orcs. Lepenhard wonders if the original Tezron ever met young Tacit, and given Tezron's temperament, he doubts Tezron would have helped him. With a laugh, Lepenhard remarks that fate has taken a strange turn. Remembering the old days when the 4 warrior kings once joined his cause, he silently hopes he will once again meet the descendant of a fearless warrior. 6 months passed since that strange encounter with Tacit, and Lepenhard continued his training with Gerard. Gerard charged at him with a focused energy blast, frustrating Lepenhard, but he managed to block it in time using the spiral guard technique. After the exchange, Gerard stepped closer and remarked that Lepenhard had now mastered the spiral guard. He added that it felt like only yesterday when Lepenhard was still trying to convince him that he truly was Lepenhard, something Gerard once thought was just the result of too many beatings during training. Lepenhard asked why Gerard was suddenly bringing up that conversation again after 6 years. Gerard replied that it had nearly been 10 years since he began teaching him, and he had made great progress over the years. But then Gerard frowned and asked why Lepenhard was still short. Nervous, Lepenhard asked what he meant, since he stood over 170 centimeters. Gerard dismissed it as nonsense, insisting that any student of Jim Unbreakable should be at least 2 meters tall, since all fist masters were giants. He placed his hand on Lepenhard's head and asked if he was using the breathing technique he had taught him. Hearing this, Lepenhard recalled that in his past life, Tezron had grown to nearly 2.3 meters tall. He replied that his height was just due to his natural constitution, but inwardly he wondered if Gerard was insane. If he kept using the breathing technique, he might really end up becoming a giant. Gerard, however, shrugged it off, saying that it didn't matter as long as he was strong and sturdy. Later, Gerard took Lepenhard near the waterfall to see the results of his training. There, Lepenhard unleashed his power, leaping into the air to use the Calamity Horn technique. With 4 stacked layers of aura, he struck the ground, shattering the ice into countless pieces. Gerard laughed proudly at the sight and praised him, declaring that he would not be defeated by anyone. Lepenhard, pleased with himself, was thrilled to have finally mastered the 4-stack Calamity Horn. Gerard then announced that it was time for Lepenhard to go out into the world. Shocked, Lepenhard hesitated, but Gerard encouraged him, saying he should live his life however his heart desired. Whether he chose the path of good or bad didn't matter. His reward for years of training was the freedom to live as he wished. Gerard then shared advice from 60 years ago, passed down to him by his master, Rastal, the 3rd king of fists. Rastal told him to always remember 3 things. First, it was fine to gather wealth, but never through unjust means. Young Gerard, puzzled, asked why he would say this when he had once told him it was fine to be a villain. Rastal explained that if he chose to be a villain, he should at least be a classy one with dignity. The second piece of advice was to always stand with those who had been wronged, as it was better to live a life worthy of praise. When Gerard asked if that meant he shouldn't side with the weak, Rastal explained that the weak are not always in the wrong, and besides, almost everyone was weaker than a student of Gym Unbreakable, so they could not be the judge of who was truly weak. Finally, the third and most important rule was to never let the legacy of Gym Unbreakable die. The scene shifted back to Gerard and Lepenhard in the present. Gerard told him to find a student one day to pass on this great teaching. Lepenhard agreed, promising to remember those words. Gerard then tossed him some money, advising that finding a gifted student would not be easy. He told him not to waste his life searching endlessly, but to make sure never to let such a student slip away once they appeared. Gerard packed some travel money and clothes for Lepenhard. Seeing that it was only 30 silver coins, Lepenhard complained that Gerard could have easily given more, since he was the wealthiest man in the Vasily kingdom. Although 30 silver coins was enough for half a year of living expenses for a commoner, Gerard explained that their martial sect had set a standard amount for departure funds. He added that back in his day, it had only been 25 coins. Gerard then told Lepenhard he had left him a small gift hidden in the Seatlad mountain range, handing him a map with the location marked on it, and advised him to check it out if he ever passed by. Lepenhard unfolded the map and prepared to finally leave the mountain, still wondering if he was truly free at last. Looking back at the snowy peaks, he felt a mix of relief and hesitation. Suddenly, Gerard released a surge of aura, startling him, and shouted for him to go. He told Lepenhard not to let their farewell hold him back, reminding him to stay strong and move forward, because he was the successor of the greatest teacher in the world. Encouraged, Lepenhard began running, the sound of Gerard's explosive aura echoing behind him. The scene then shifted to an inn in the city, where a black-haired man tried to stop an elderly man, the inn's chief, from confronting a group of armored knights. The old man, however, refused to back down, even knowing he was going against nobles, because he could no longer stay silent. Approaching a brown-haired knight, he demanded payment for the food and lodging consumed by him and his men during their stay. The knight smirked and tossed him a gold coin, thinking condescendingly that it was more than enough for commoners and mocking them in his mind. The old man caught the coin, examined it, and then called out again, saying that 1 gold coin was not nearly enough. Enraged, the knight shouted, accusing the old man of trying to scam him and claiming that he, as a noble, knew the market value better. In his arrogance, he struck the old man across the face. To the onlookers, however, it was clear, this knight was nothing more than a bandit in armor, a man who took over their homes, devoured their food, and then offered a single gold coin as if it covered everything. The old man, clutching his face, thought bitterly that the knight hadn't even considered transportation costs or labor. Just then, another man appeared and asked Edward, the knight, if there was any problem. Edward quickly replied to Stefan that everything was fine, but Stefan arrogantly stepped forward, belittling the old man and the townsfolk, sneering that they didn't know their place as commoners or when to stop. The scene shifts to the past, where Lepenhard is lying beside Cirrus after spending time with her. As Cirrus keeps touching his body, Lepenhard asks why, and she simply replies that it is because she likes it. Lepenhard, embarrassed, asks what she could possibly like about his skinny frame. With a gentle smile, answers that his body is elegant and sharp, like a well-honed blade. That was how Lepenhard's body once was, but now, he feels it has become more like that of a terrifying stone golem. The thought makes him cry as he apologizes to Cirrus. Yet, part of him feels relieved, thinking that at least he is growing taller. Looking out the window, he reflects that Cirrus, if alive now, would be over 70 years old, around the equivalent of 17 in human years. Currently, Lepenhard is in Chrome City, in the southern region of the Vasily Kingdom. He knows that around next year, Cirrus will be sold at a slave auction in the Chotin Kingdom. He wonders if he should destroy the auction house to save her, but decides against it. If things spiral out of control, it will interfere with his goal of regaining his magic. Instead, he believes the best solution is to buy her freedom. Unfortunately, elf slaves are unimaginably expensive, and Lepenhard is flat broke. Still, he reassures himself that he now has a powerful body, honed skills, and even the memories of the future. Thinking along those lines, Lepenhard recalls ruins on the road to the Chotin Kingdom. The scene then shifts to Wizard Todd casting detection magic. Stefan asks if Todd has located the ruins yet, but Todd tells him to wait a little longer. Todd, a 35-year-old ruins exploration specialist and a wizard of the Delphia Magic Tower, finally confirms the location. Stefan asks if he is certain, and Todd replies that this is indeed the resting place of the great swordsman, Claude von Leota's Altion. Meanwhile, 3 days have passed since Lepenhard left Chrome City. He travels north along the central road toward the Hatton mountain range. Along the way, he praises Tesrin's body, noting its endless stamina and resistance to the cold. He recalls how previous kings of Fist were known to walk shirtless even in winter, though he has no intention of doing the same. Using the artificial phantasmagoria technique, which allows him to recall memories whenever he wishes, Lepenhard reviews what he knows about the ruins in the Hatton Mountains. In his past life, while studying at the Delphia Tower, he had met Todd. Back then, Todd mentioned he would one day explore those ruins with someone from House Altion. Lepenhard remembers clearly that it was around this time. He also recalls that in the past, when he himself went to the ruins, he discovered a hidden artifact underground, one that Todd and his team completely missed. He smirks at the memory of selling everything he found there, earning over 2,000 gold coins. It had been a very profitable discovery. Soon, Lepenhard arrives at a cliff overlooking Cattle Village, which looks exactly as he remembers. The scene shifts again to the village, where the chief and several villagers are in the middle of a difficult discussion. They are being forced to provide a guide to the knights, who insist on heading into the Valley of Death, a place the villagers desperately want to avoid. Refusal would bring trouble, but compliance could cost lives. The chief tries to stand firm, but the knights threaten him. A black-haired man curses their situation, but a brown-haired man warns him to lower his voice before the knights overhear. Seeing no other option, a red-haired man named Ted steps forward, offering to go with the knights. Ted, the best mountain climber in the village, is the only one capable of making such a journey. His wife and child cry at his decision, but the villagers pressure him, insisting he cannot back out now. Reluctantly, Ted prepares himself, though he clearly doesn't want to go. At that moment, Lepenhard, who had been watching quietly from outside, presses his face against the window and interrupts, saying that he can go in Ted's place. Shocked, Ted raises his bow at him, demanding to know his identity. Lepenhard calmly explains that he is just a traveler passing through who happened to overhear their conversation. Suspicious, Ted questions if it was truly an accident, since no one accidentally ends up with their head under someone else's window. They allowed Lepenhard inside the house, but everyone was frightened by his towering figure. One of them nervously asked if he knew the area well, and Lepenhard confirmed that he did. They asked again if he was truly willing to go to the Valley of Death. Lepenhard calmly replied that he had been there before, so it would be fine. The brown-haired man explained that no one had ever returned alive from that place, and asked once more if Lepenhard still wished to go. Lepenhard interrupted, repeating that he had already been there, while thinking to himself that they should consider themselves lucky, since he had just saved one of their men's lives. The Valley of Death was also known as a dungeon, a remnant of the Silver Age, a long-forgotten ancient past. 50 years earlier, There was a knight named Claude from House Altion. He awakened his aura at the young age of 45 and lived a life of countless adventures, his heroic tales spreading throughout the Vasily kingdom. But when fame grows too great, people often forget their limits. Claude charged into the Valley of Death with only a single servant and perished. His family's treasured weapon, the demon sword Altion, was lost in those ruins. The sword was the symbol of House Altion, passed down for generations. For 50 years, the family tried to recover it. Now, Stefan, a descendant of House Altion, was heading toward the dungeon with Lepenhard and a group of knights. Lepenhard suspected that Stefan might even be Claude's grandson. As the journey continued, Lepenhard noticed Stefan and an elf interacting closely, almost playfully. He wondered why a Slayer elf was traveling beside Stefan and why they seemed so comfortable together. Their party also had only one priest, Salon, whose striking beauty made Lepenhard question whether he could truly cast proper holy spells. To his surprise, Salon was actually a man. Lepenhard wanted to approach Todd, hoping to come up with an excuse to talk since it had been so long. In the past, when Todd was a young wizard, he used to chat with him in the same lively way. But something felt different this time, like Todd's attention was directed towards Salon. The thought made Lepenhard uneasy, sweating as he tried to convince himself that Todd wasn't that kind of person. Meanwhile, Edward told Lepenhard that he had made the right choice by joining them. Lepenhard brushed it off, saying it wasn't a big deal. Edward remarked that none of the villagers had dared to volunteer. Lepenhard replied that it was only natural for them to be afraid, but Edward insisted there was no reason to fear the dungeon since they were accompanied by the bravest knights in the kingdom. That arrogance irritated Lepenhard. To him, knights always seemed to be arrogant fools, their so-called chivalry only breeding more narcissists. Suddenly, a scream echoed from the mountains. Dozens of white-furred monsters charged at their party. Edward quickly ordered the knights to form defensive positions against the ambush. The Slayer elf and Stefan drew their weapons, and Stefan shouted that the monsters had dared to attack humans blessed by Sayer. He ordered his knights to strike back. Todd unleashed fire chain magic against the creatures, while Celon cast holy spells to strengthen the knights. Their coordination impressed Lepenhard. They were more capable than he had expected, especially Stefan, whose swordsmanship was sharper than anticipated. But from a fighter's perspective, their movements still seemed sloppy. It was no wonder Gerard always took pride in the training of Jim Unbreakable. Amid the battle, Lepenhard noticed a traveler under attack by one of the flying white-furred monsters. As the beast swooped down, Lepenhard stepped in, delivering a powerful punch to stop it, all while wondering why no one else was watching out for the helpless traveler. According to Todd's account, this was the place where their guide, Ted, had died at the hands of the white-furred monsters. The leader of the party, Stefan of the Altion family, fought alongside the knights. He wasn't an entirely bad person, but he never looked out for the people around him, which, to Lepenhard, was the very definition of a bad person. It was no surprise to him that their guide had died under Stefan's leadership. During the battle, Celon urged Lepenhard to hide behind a tree because it was dangerous. This made Lepenhard think that Celon might be the only decent one among them. A white-furred monster lunged at Lepenhard. He defeated the beast instantly, wondering if he still had unshed tears left from his years of harsh training. The orc-like monsters around them grew frightened after witnessing this. Once the battle ended, Stefan ordered Edward to report the damage and check if the wizard and priest were safe. Edward confirmed they were. Annoyed, Lepenhard asked if they didn't care about anyone else's safety. Stefan ignored him and proudly announced to the surviving knights that the Altion order was strong, telling them to enjoy their victory and rest. Seeing an opportunity, Lepenhard approached Todd to thank him for saving his life. Todd coldly replied that it was simply his duty. Lepenhard pressed further, saying he had overheard that Todd was from the Delphia Tower and mentioned that he had a friend there as well. Curious, Todd asked about the friend's name. Lepenhard, suppressing a smirk, said his friend's name was Lepenhard and asked if Todd knew him. Todd confirmed that he did, but jokingly added that he didn't know Lepenhard had such a rugged-looking companion. Todd's expression then shifted uncomfortably as he remarked on Lepenhard's sweet and graceful appearance. The comment unsettled Lepenhard. When Todd asked why he wanted to know, Lepenhard explained that he was simply curious about how his friend was doing and if everything was all right. Todd replied that Lepenhard was studying magic as usual, with nothing unusual going on. While they were talking, Ceylon interrupted to ask if Lepenhard was hurt. Lepenhard replied that he was fine and told Ceylon to check on the orcs instead. Ceylon went to heal them, even though the orcs insisted they weren't badly injured. Some knights sneered at the sight, telling Ceylon to stop wasting his power and let the orcs tend to themselves. Watching, Lepenhard noted that although Ceylon treated the orcs kindly, the real issue, he realized, was the fundamental prejudice in people's values. Securing equal rights for non-human races would be a long and difficult struggle. Lepenhard's irritation grew as Stefan arrogantly told him to start guiding. Giving them directions, he casually instructed them to proceed with strength and then turn left toward a stream. Suspicious, Stefan asked why he was using such a strange tone, but Lepenhard brushed it off. Hours later, all the knights were exhausted from fighting endless monsters in the forest. The truth was that Lepenhard had deliberately avoided the proper path, guiding them in a straight line to wear them down. When they grew tired, he manipulated Stefan again, insisting they didn't need to rest. Stefan took the bait and forced everyone to continue. To Lepenhard, it was all fair play. Knights were arrogant, priests were stubborn, and wizards were narrow-minded. And as a wizard at heart, he convinced himself that he hadn't tricked them at all. He had simply guided them along the quickest route. While walking, Stefan remarked that he finally understood why Claude had died in the mountains. No one would have imagined that such a small mountain could be swarming with so many monsters. From the cliff, they eventually spotted the ancient ruins of Fulton and made their way down toward it. After reaching the entrance, they found the doors already open. Assuming it was safe to enter, Stefan ordered the knights to prepare themselves. Lepenhard told Stefan that he would wait outside, but Stefan insisted that his job was done and that he should go back. Lepenhard pointed out that there was no way he could return to the village on his own. Hearing this, Stefan reluctantly agreed, saying that since Lepenhard had guided them, they would protect him on the journey back. Lepenhard grew angry, realizing they had not intended to help him in the first place. Stefan then rallied the knights, boosting their morale by reminding them of their mission to find the demon sword Altion. With loud cheers, the knights charged into the dungeon, while Lepenhard simply waved them off. Once they were gone, he decided it was time to focus on his true goal. The ancient ruins of Fulton, now infested with monsters and restless souls, had originally been a military outpost built during the Silver Age. Though it was an ordinary structure by design, the technology of that era was far beyond the standards of the present day, making it a place of incredible value. Entering the dungeon, Lepenhard felt a wave of nostalgia, remembering his adventures with Cirrus. Focusing, Lepenhard examined the hidden passage. He remembered that the lock was coated with Libra's pattern, mixed with the reversed symbols of Aqua and Terra. He knew how to solve it, but without his old magical strength, the process was more difficult than expected. His body was stronger now, but his mind was not as sharp as it once had been. Still, after effort, he managed to cast the spell and open the passage. Before entering, Lepenhard removed his shirt, not wanting to ruin something that had cost 10 silver coins. He flexed briefly, checking his physical condition, when suddenly a scream echoed from the opposite side of the dungeon. He immediately remembered that the hidden passage connected directly to the third basement floor. If the stairs had opened, it meant there had been some kind of intrusion there. Lepenhard reminded himself that no matter how ruined it seemed, Fulton was still a military facility. Its magical defense systems would activate to fight off intruders. In the past, when it was just him and Cirrus, they hadn't needed to worry about the other areas. But now, with the Altion party inside, it was likely they had triggered a trap and ended up falling together to the second basement floor. The realization made him break into a sweat. This had turned into a complete mess. The scene then shifted to Stefan, Ceylon, and the knights battling against a terrifying monster with glowing red eyes. The moment Stefan sensed its aura, he realized the truth. There was no way they could defeat it. Worse still, there were many of these creatures. No human force could possibly fight against such overwhelming numbers of demon-like monsters. Ceylon moves quickly through the battlefield, using his holy magic to heal the injured knights. The wounds of the soldiers close almost instantly, leaving them amazed and deeply grateful. They thank Ceylon for saving them, but he calmly tells them not to worry about it, explaining that he needs them alive if he hopes to survive the dungeon himself. Afterward, Ceylon walks over to Todd, still thinking about how they suddenly sank from the previous floor. He sincerely thanks Todd for saving their lives with his magic. Todd responds modestly, saying that while his spell protected them from the fall, he cannot promise that his magic will save them from every danger that lies ahead. As Ceylon, Todd, and the other knights carefully observe the room connected to the staircase, chaos suddenly erupts. Terrifying monsters emerge after them. The creatures resemble undead beings, relentlessly chasing the knights with the intent to kill. Seeing the danger, Ceylon immediately begins casting a powerful holy spell as the magic gathers. When the spell is complete, Ceylon unleashes the power, shouting as he fills the knights with overwhelming courage. Instantly, Edward is also affected by the holy magic. With renewed intensity, he shouts at the soldiers, raising their morale and urging them to fight. Empowered by Ceylon's spell, the knights charge forward and clash with the horde of undead monsters. Meanwhile, Todd begins casting another spell to enchant the knights' weapons, but before he can finish, one of the undead strikes him with a powerful punch. At the same time, the Slayer elf attempts to fight one of the undead monsters, but the creature easily overpowers her and delivers a brutal punch that sends her flying into the wall. As she collapses, barely conscious, she murmurs that she hopes her effort was enough to help her master, Stefan. Hearing this, the knight Stefan immediately rushes forward. He praises the Slayer elf, Relsha, for her bravery before taking his stance to confront the undead. Edward admires Stefan's knightly courage, but Stefan's expression is filled with anger. He shouts at the knights to stay focused, reminding them that this very place is where Claude once met his downfall. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts from the ceiling. Through the smoke, another terrifying monster appears, and it roars as it charges toward the knights. Despite the fear spreading among them, Stefan tries to strengthen their resolve, reminding everyone that they are the proud knights of House Altion and must stand their ground. However, the fiery monster proves overwhelmingly powerful. Seeing the situation worsening, Stefan knows that he must win this fight no matter the cost. Determined not to let the monster destroy them, he leaps into the air, resolved to uphold the name of House Altion. With all his strength, Stefan unleashes his technique, shooting strike, directly at the monster. But the attack barely affects the creature. In response, the monster delivers a devastating punch that sends Stefan crashing to the ground. Seeing this, Ceylon begins casting another holy spell and strikes the monster with holy power. Instead of weakening it, however, the attack only enrages the creature further. The monster immediately turns its attention towards Ceylon and begins charging at him. Terrified, Ceylon freezes and shuts his eyes in fear as the monster closes in. But at the very last moment, someone steps in and blocks the attack. When Ceylon opens his eyes, he sees Lepenhard standing calmly in front of him. Lepenhard prepares to strike and throws a single punch at the monster. To his surprise, the powerful creature is instantly defeated with just that one hit. Realizing this, Lepenhard reflects that it is no wonder Tezron was able to knock him out with a single punch in his previous life. After defeating the monster, Lepenhard looks around at the battlefield. Many knights, including Stefan, are defeated. Sensing that even more undead monsters are approaching, he decides to move the injured soldiers to a safer place. While carrying Relsha and clearing the path by defeating any monsters that appear, he leads the knights away from danger. Watching his overwhelming strength, both Todd and Ceylon cannot help but wonder about the true identity of Lepenhard. Stefan finally regains consciousness. Edward quickly notices that Stefan is awake and asks if he is alright. Still confused, Stefan looks around at the fallen creatures and asks Edward what exactly happened. Edward calmly explains the entire situation, including how the monsters were defeated. Hearing the story leaves Stefan stunned, especially when he realizes that Lepenhard was the one who eliminated the powerful enemy. After collecting himself, Stefan approaches Lepenhard and apologizes, assuming that he must be a nobleman traveling for training. He then politely asks for his name. Since Todd is aware of Lepenhard's identity, he quickly steps in and introduces him simply as Lepen. Edward frowns slightly, saying that he has never heard of that name before. In his experience, if someone were truly a powerful champion, their name would already be well known. Curious, Stefan asks which noble family Lepenhard belongs to. However, Lepenhard calmly replies that he is not from a noble family at all. The answer instantly changes Stefan's expression. Realizing that Lepenhard is merely a commoner, Stefan becomes visibly irritated. He had assumed that Lepenhard was a nobleman's son on a training journey, and discovering otherwise feels humiliating to him. With a condescending attitude, Stefan taps Lepenhard on the shoulder and arrogantly remarks that Lepenhard simply stepped in at the end to finish off the work the knights had already handled. Still, he adds that Lepenhard was somewhat helpful. Lepenhard immediately knocks Stefan's hand away and asks if his memory is distorted, pointing out that Stefan is making claims that are not supported by what actually happened. Stefan's temper instantly flares. Angrily, he demands to know what Lepenhard just said and orders him to show proper respect to the Knights of House Altion. Edward quickly steps in to calm Stefan down, suggesting that a commoner might simply be unfamiliar with noble etiquette. Stefan nods in agreement and remarks that Lepenhardt's behavior is probably due to his background. He then asks who taught Lepenhard his fighting techniques. Lepenhard decides to keep the truth hidden, since his master Gerard's reputation is widely known across the continent. Revealing the connection could attract unnecessary attention. More importantly, he does not want that man to learn about his current whereabouts. So Lepenhard casually claims that he trained on his own. This answer surprises Stefan. It is difficult for him to believe that someone without formal training could possess such strength. Growing tired of the questions, Lepenhard tells Stefan to stop interrogating him and instead check on the wounded knights. Edward quietly observes the conversation and thinks that Lepenhard seems surprisingly comfortable speaking in such a commanding tone. Lepenhard points toward the injured soldiers, emphasizing that their condition is the real priority right now. Edward continues watching him carefully. The way Lepenhard speaks sounds natural, almost as if he is used to giving orders from a high position. Edward also notices that Lepenhard shows no concern about the difference in their ages, speaking to them as if he were the older one. This makes Edward wonder if Lepenhard might not simply be rude, but perhaps someone of noble or even royal background from another country. The more Edward thinks about it, the more interesting Lepenhard becomes to him. Just then, Ceylon approaches Lepenhard with an unusual curiosity and asks about his height. Lepenhard replies that he is about 192 centimeters tall. Ceylon's eyes immediately sparkle with excitement. Ceylon continues asking questions, curious about the type of training required to build such a powerful physique. Lepenhard casually explains that he mostly got beaten up a lot during training, ate plenty of food, and lifted heavy weights. As he answers, he quietly wonders why Ceylon has suddenly become so friendly. Still curious, Ceylon asks if it is true that fighters rarely share the secrets of their training. His fascination comes from his own past. After losing his parents at a young age, Ceylon was taken in by the orphanage. Because of his frail health and delicate appearance, the other children often teased him. Perhaps because of those experiences, Ceylon began to admire the things he lacked. He dreamed of having a strong body, a hearty laugh, and a deep voice. However, reality did not turn out the way he imagined. Ceylon never grew much taller, his voice never deepened, and his hair continued to grow too quickly. Even when he tried intense muscle training to gain strength, the result was unexpected. His holy power increased dramatically instead, as he constantly used healing magic to recover from muscle pain. Because of that, Ceylon gradually began admiring people with rugged and powerful physiques. Trying to escape the awkward situation, Lepenhard announces that he will go scout the exits and begins walking away. Hearing this, Ceylon immediately offers to accompany him. However, Lepenhard stops him and explains that if more injured knights are discovered while Ceylon is gone, there would be no one to heal them. Realizing that Lepenhard is right, Ceylon reluctantly stays behind. At that moment, Stefan steps forward and declares that he will accompany Lepenhard instead. He orders Relsha to remain with the others and assist the wounded knights. Stefan then walks beside Lepenhard and asks if it is acceptable for him to join. Lepenhard simply shrugs and tells him to suit himself as they continue forward. While walking, Stefan glances at Lepenhard's tall figure and continues thinking about the earlier events. Deep down, he struggles to accept that the Knights of House Altion needed help from a commoner. In his mind, Lepenhard is probably feeling proud of himself for assisting the knights. To Stefan, the fact that Lepenhard volunteered to scout ahead without acknowledging his place feels like a sign that he does not properly respect the knights. As they continue walking through the ruins, determined to restore his pride, He decides that the next time they encounter a demon, he will personally defeat it and prove his strength. In his imagination, he pictures Lepenhard being so impressed that he would thank Stefan for saving the day. However, while Stefan is lost in these thoughts, Lepenhard suddenly strikes him on the back of the head. Lepenhard does this deliberately because they have reached a location he does not want Stefan to see. At the same time, several monsters begin emerging from the shadows to attack them. Lepenhard deals with the creatures effortlessly, defeating them one after another without much effort. While clearing the area, he even starts humming cheerfully, already thinking about the treasures hidden in the ruins. Soon, he arrives at a particular room and begins searching through a cupboard. His goal is simple. He wants to collect the 50 gold coins that are hidden there. While searching, Lepenhard also discovers a magical item known as the Infinite Bag, a special bag capable of storing items up to 10 times its own size. Lepenhard recalls that another container should also be located nearby. Inside it, he finds several valuable treasures, including the Celestial Furnace, the Dagger of Recall, and the Sapphire of Magical Power. Seeing so many rare and expensive items gathered in one place, Lepenhard cannot help but smile with satisfaction. A short while later, Stefan regains consciousness and groggily asks what happened to him. Without hesitation, Lepenhard casually explains that a monster struck the back of Stefan's head and knocked him out with a single blow. Hearing this explanation leaves Stefan extremely frustrated, as he cannot understand why nothing seems to be going according to plan today. Still, he thanks Lepenhard for helping him. Lepenhard forces a polite expression and tells Stefan that there is no need to mention it, though in his mind he quietly thinks that he might have to knock Stefan out again if necessary. And that is exactly what happens. Over the course of their exploration, Stefan ends up losing consciousness 3 more times, while Lepenhard secretly searches the ruins for additional treasures. During the final time, Lepenhard briefly worries that Stefan might actually be injured, but he reassures himself that a wealthy noble like Stefan would easily be able to recover. Eventually, Stefan wakes up once again. This time, he feels uneasy. Despite constantly staying alert, he cannot recall sensing anything that could have attacked him. Assuming that he might simply be feeling weak, Stefan decides that he will take some restorative tonics once they return. Meanwhile, Lepenhard feels extremely satisfied. The infinite bag is now completely full, leaving no room for additional items. Since he cannot carry anything else for the moment, he decides that he can always return later to collect more treasures. With that in mind, he tells Stefan that the exits have been secured and that they should head back to the others. When they return, the entire group of knights gathers and prepares to leave the ruins together. As they walk, Ceylon approaches Lepenhard and asks an unusual question, whether he might actually belong to a royal family. Lepenhard quickly denies this, calmly stating that he is just a commoner. Ceylon finds that difficult to believe and seems ready to argue, but Lepenhard interrupts and asks if it is really that strange for a commoner to be skilled. Ceylon replies that the problem is not Lepenhard's strength. Instead, it is the way he speaks. According to Ceylon, Lepenhard talks as if everyone around him is beneath him. Lepenhard looks confused by this comment, so Ceylon clarifies. He explains that fighters are often confident, so he understands why Lepenhard might speak bluntly to someone like Stefan. However, Ceylon did not expect Lepenhard to use the same tone with Edward, who is more than 40 years old. Hearing this makes Lepenhard realize something important. In this life, he is only 22 years old, which means he should probably be more careful about how he speaks to older people. Trying to correct the situation, Lepenhard tells Ceylon that he rarely interacts with others, so he is not very familiar with proper etiquette. Before long, the group finally reaches the exit door of the ruins. Stefan steps forward and opens it, but the moment the door swings open, everyone suddenly freezes. Standing inside the chamber is a massive monster known as a Grell Beast, roaring loudly as it guards the room. Lepenhard immediately feels uneasy because he does not remember encountering this monster in his previous life. Stefan quickly draws his sword and declares that the Grell Beast is likely the guardian of the place. Hearing this, Lepenhard realizes what must have happened. The monster simply had not been defeated yet in his past timeline. As the knights stare at the creature, a white-haired knight suddenly points out something important and tells Stefan to look at the sword in the monster's hand. The weapon is none other than the legendary demon sword Altion. Seeing this, Stefan immediately draws his weapon with determination. Edward, however, shouts in alarm and asks whether they truly intend to fight such a dangerous beast. Stefan confidently replies that they will face it. Edward urgently tries to stop him, arguing that the situation is far too dangerous. Since they have already located the sword, he suggests that they should return to the Altion March and gather reinforcements before attempting the battle. But Stefan refuses to accept this advice. In Stefan's mind, retreating now is not an option. He declares that he will reclaim the demon sword no matter the cost. With fierce determination, Stefan raises his voice and orders all the knights to lift their swords. Inspired by his command, the knights shout in unison and raise their weapons toward the monster. Watching this display, however, Lepenhard can only shake his head, silently thinking that the decision is incredibly reckless. The ruins they have entered originate from the Silver Age, and like many ancient structures of that era, they possess a self-sustaining system designed to maintain the dungeon's balance. This system automatically compensates for any damage or irregularities within the ruins. However, due to a malfunction, a creature from another world, the Grellbeast, was accidentally absorbed into the dungeon's defense system. In simple terms, beings like this become what are known as dungeon guardians. These creatures originally lived peaceful lives before being forcibly pulled into the ruins and bound to protect them. Once merged with the dungeon system, their strength increases dramatically. Lepenhard quickly realizes the seriousness of the situation. He remembers that in the past, a demon powerful enough to defeat Claude, an aura wielder, existed in this dungeon. If the guardian here is a creature even stronger than Tagrel, then its power would be on an entirely different level. Meanwhile, Stefan looks toward the knights and shouts confidently that the monster is restrained by chains, so there is no reason to fear something that is already bound. Lepenhard turns to Edward and quietly asks if they truly intend to fight the creature, because in his opinion, they have no chance of defeating it. Edward replies that they appreciate Lepenhard's help so far, but he also mocks him slightly. According to Edward, some things are worth risking their lives for. Hearing this, Lepenhard sighs inwardly. Soon, Edward also joins the battle, encouraging the knights and raising their morale. This only makes Lepenhard more worried. In his mind, the knights are already struggling against ordinary enemies, so he cannot imagine how they expect to defeat a monster like the Grellbeast. Ceylon begins casting holy spells to enhance the knights' agility and strength, but even with the magical support, the Grellbeast is far too powerful. Watching the fight unfold, Lepenhard mutters that he already warned them. One by one, the knights are sent flying by the creature's attacks. Despite seeing his comrades fall, Stefan continues ordering everyone to attack. At that moment, Lepenhard finally understands Stefan's personality. No matter how much someone tries to reason with him, Stefan will not listen. Still, Lepenhard believes Edward is more level-headed, so perhaps he could eventually be convinced. Even so, Stefan manages to hold his ground against the Grellbeast for the moment. If one were being generous, it could be described as moving like a butterfly and striking like a bee. In reality, Lepenhard thinks Stefan is mostly landing quick, opportunistic strikes while avoiding the monster's full power. Ceylon casts another spell, striking the Grellbeast with it. At the same time, Relsha leaps into the air and delivering precise attacks that perfectly coordinate with Stefan's movements. Watching this teamwork, Lepenhard quietly praises Relsha's skill. In his estimation, she might actually be more capable than Edward and could very well be the second strongest member of the knight group. He then glances at Todd, who is preparing another spell. At that moment, Lepenhard begins to think that he may have underestimated the group's abilities. Todd unleashes a powerful blizzard storm spell. But suddenly, something strange happens. The chamber, which had been glowing with soft blue light, suddenly shifts to a deep red color. The change triggers a mechanism that snaps the chains restraining the Grellbeast. The monster is now completely free. Lepenhard is genuinely shocked by this development. The Grellbeast immediately leaps into the air and crashes down with tremendous force. It continues rampaging across the battlefield, striking at anyone within reach. Stefan attempts to attack again, but with a single powerful blow, the Grellbeast sends him crashing into a wall. Edward comments that it is fortunate Stefan is still able to move. Determined to continue the fight, Stefan and Relsha coordinate another attack. Relsha jumps high into the air to strike the monster, but before she can land her blow, the Grellbeast suddenly releases a massive burst of fire from its mouth, The flames surge directly towards Ceylon. Frozen in fear, Ceylon can only stand there as the attack approaches. At the last moment, however, Lepenhard steps in and pulls him out of danger. Afterward, Lepenhard apologizes to Ceylon, saying that he was briefly caught off guard and could not reach him sooner. Now standing directly in front of the Grell beast, Lepenhard studies the creature carefully. He wonders whether he truly has a chance of defeating it with his current strength. At the same time, he is curious about how far his new martial abilities have developed. He also wonders whether the demon can withstand the power of his body's martial techniques. If he were still a wizard like in his previous life, he would normally avoid taking such risks. But now he is a fighter, and the idea of facing a powerful opponent excites him. This thrill is something he never experienced in his past life. With that thought, Lepenhard charges forward, saying that it seems he has truly become the kind of martial artist that Gerard would be proud of. Gerard once taught him that in uncertain situations, it is often best to throw the first punch. Following that lesson, Lepenhard launches a focused energy blast, striking the Grell beast directly. However, the attack barely affects the monster. The Grell beast retaliates instantly. Lepenhard manages to dodge the main strike, but the creature's claws still leave a deep scratch across his body. Ordinary steel swords cannot even damage the Grell beast's body, but its magical claws are sharp enough to wound Lepenhard. The monster attacks again, and this time the impact sends Lepenhard crashing into a wall. Seeing this, Ceylon shouts his name in alarm. But moments later, Lepenhard rises to his feet again and calmly assures everyone that he is fine. Ceylon is astonished by the resilience of an aura wielder. Lepenhard cracks his neck and reflects on the exchange. If he had endured the earlier attack just a little longer, he might have found an opening to counter. Unfortunately, after so many brutal sparring sessions with Gerard, taking hits and reacting immediately has become a natural reflex. He decides that perhaps it is time to refine his technique a little more. The Grell beast suddenly says something in a strange language, but Lepenhard cannot understand it. Ignoring the words, he charges forward once more, choosing to face the creature head-on. The two begin exchanging powerful punches in the middle of the battlefield. Watching the clash, Stefan is completely stunned. He realizes that Lepenhard is using aura. Stefan cannot understand how someone without a noble name or prestigious lineage could awaken such power, while he himself, despite being a noble knight, has not yet manifested aura. As Lepenhard continues striking the Grell beast with relentless blows, Stefan's shock only deepens, and he begins to seriously question the true identity of the mysterious fighter standing before them. As the battle continues, the Grell beast swings the demon sword at Lepenhard. However, Lepenhard calmly dodges the strike and continues exchanging blows with the creature. During the fight, he cannot help but realize just how effective his training has been. Thanks to countless sparring sessions, the Grell beast's attacks now appear predictable to him. This allows Lepenhard to easily spot openings and counterattack. However, defeating a Guardian of the Ruins is not simple. No matter how many injuries they suffer, Dungeon Guardians do not fall easily. The ruins continuously supply them with magical energy, allowing them to heal their wounds and keep fighting. The Grell beast suddenly begins gathering flames to launch another powerful attack. Before it can release the attack, Lepenhard rushes forward, grabs the creature, and locks its joints in place. Then he delivers a powerful kick to the monster's face, casually calling it aerial combat practice. Immediately after that, he launches a rapid series of punches, referring to them as striking drills. Lepenhard continues attacking the Grell beast relentlessly, almost as if he is treating the powerful monster like the perfect training dummy. Meanwhile, the knights watch the battle in stunned silence. Even so, Lepenhard knows he cannot keep using the Grell beast as a practice target forever. For a moment, he considers finishing the monster with the Calamity Horn, a powerful technique. But he quickly dismisses the idea. If he used that attack, the entire structure might collapse, burying everyone inside the ruins. Thinking about this makes him realize that the knights present are actually limiting his options rather than helping him. While Lepenhard continues fighting, Todd suddenly shouts some advice. He suggests that Lepenhard should use a sword. If he does, Todd and the others could cast a holy spell on the aura-infused blade, allowing him to defeat the Grell beast much more easily. Lepenhard finds this suggestion slightly amusing. Of course he knows about that technique. The real problem is that he does not know how to infuse his aura into weapons. Confused, Todd asks what he means. Lepenhard explains that he can only circulate aura through his own body and has never learned how to channel it into weapons. Todd finds this extremely strange and calls it absurd. Lepenhard simply shrugs and replies that this is how things are done in his martial sect. At that moment, Ceylon calls out Lepenhard's name. While barely holding the Grell beast back and trembling from the strain, Lepenhard turns his head toward him. Ceylon suddenly asks an unexpected question, whether Lepenhard's body is strong and well-trained. Lepenhard replies that his body is indeed quite sturdy. Hearing this, Ceylon quickly begins casting a holy spell. He tells Lepenhard that he is about to grant him Filanit's blessing. Lepenhard grits his teeth as the magic flows into him. Once the spell is complete, he grabs the Grell beast and throws the monster violently into a wall. In that moment, he realizes that Ceylon has cast Holy Striking, a spell normally used to enchant weapons for stronger attacks. Seeing Lepenhard overpower the Grell beast, Ceylon excitedly shouts that the holy spell is working and urges him to finish the monster. Hearing this enthusiasm, Lepenhard briefly thinks that Ceylon is surprisingly aggressive for someone with such a gentle appearance. Still, he decides to end the battle quickly. Lepenhard dashes forward and delivers a powerful kick to the Grell beast. He continues attacking with a relentless combination of kicks and punches until the monster is finally defeated. As the battle ends, Lepenhard throws one final punch upward, instinctively standing in a victorious stance. The sight immediately catches Ceylon's attention. Ceylon then asks if the fight is finally over. Lepenhard quickly tells him to remove the spell as soon as possible. At that moment, Stefan approaches Lepenhard with an angry expression. He accuses Lepenhard of deceiving them and hiding his true strength the entire time. Stefan admits that Lepenhard is powerful, but he declares that he cannot forgive him for trampling on a knight's honor. Stefan angrily asks whether Lepenhard enjoyed watching the knight struggle while secretly holding back his strength. Lepenhard calmly replies that he never laughed at Stefan. In his mind, he reflects that laughing would imply at least some level of interest in the other person, but he does not care enough about Stefan to even bother. After saying this, Lepenhard simply turns and starts walking away. Furious, Stefan draws his sword and demands to know how Lepenhard dares to speak to him like that. He swings his blade at Lepenhard in anger. Lepenhard casually crouches down to pick up the demon's sword Altion lying nearby. When he stands up again, he notices that Stefan has lost his footing and fallen to the ground during the attack. Embarrassed, Stefan insists that Lepenhard merely dodged his strike. Lepenhard calmly repeats that he never laughed at Stefan. Then he tells him to stand up and take the demon's sword, reminding him that reclaiming it was the entire reason for their struggle. Edward watches this exchange and comments that Lepenhard must truly be a champion. Even with such a rare and valuable weapon in front of him, he shows no sign of greed. Stefan, however, remains clearly displeased. Meanwhile, Lepenhard quietly thinks to himself that the matter has nothing to do with greed. In his opinion, the demon sword is merely a second-rate weapon compared to the magical weapons he used to create in his previous life, many of which he even produced in large quantities. After the battle, Lepenhard calmly suggests that they should head back, explaining that there is nothing left for them to gain in the dungeon. Edward laughs when he hears this and agrees with him. Soon, the group begins walking away from the ruins together, leaving Stefan behind for a moment as he struggles to recover from the exhausting fight. Later, the story shifts to Cattle Village, where Ceylon is busy using his holy magic to heal the sick villagers. One by one, he treats the injured and ill, restoring their health. After finishing the healing, Ceylon even begins handing out gold coins to the villagers to help them recover from their hardships. Lepenhard watches this from a distance as he prepares to leave. Seeing Ceylon's actions, he thinks to himself that Ceylon certainly knows how to win people's hearts. By healing the sick and helping the poor, Ceylon is also building a positive reputation for the Filanit's order. From Lepenhard's perspective, the order is gaining excellent publicity for a relatively small cost. Meanwhile, Stefan, Edward, and the other knights ride back toward their territory on horseback. During the journey, Stefan tells Edward that they need to investigate Lepenhard's background. Someone with abilities like his cannot simply appear out of nowhere. Edward replies calmly that he already expected this reaction. Anyone with such remarkable strength was bound to attract Stefan's attention sooner or later. Hearing this only irritates Stefan further, as he cannot accept the idea that someone like Lepenhard might be stronger than him. The scene then shifts to Lepenhard walking along the road. He decides that his next destination will be to meet Cirrus. However, he soon turns to Ceylon and asks why the priest keeps following him everywhere. Ceylon smiles and asks Lepenhard if he has ever heard of priests who travel the world spreading the goddess's blessings while caring for believers. Lepenhard nods and replies that he knows about them. Those priests are called pilgrims, although many of them unfortunately lose their lives during their dangerous journeys. Ceylon explains that he was originally planning to return to the order, but he has now decided to walk the path of a pilgrim instead. If possible, he says, he would like to travel alongside the strongest person he has ever met. When Lepenhard looks at Ceylon's enthusiastic expression, he suddenly feels a chill. For a moment, he even wonders if Ceylon might share the same strange fascination with physical strength that Gerard and Todd have. Lepenhard begins to wonder if he is somehow cursed, as he keeps finding himself surrounded by unusual people like this. At first, since Ceylon seems like a decent person, Lepenhard considers politely declining his request. However, he quickly remembers something important. Ceylon is a priest, which essentially makes him the best possible first aid support for any journey. Since Cirrus might be weak or in need of medical care, having a skilled healer nearby could actually be very useful. After thinking it over, Lepenhard simply shrugs and tells Ceylon that he can come along if he wants. At the same time, he quietly tells himself that he is heading to meet Cirrus.